Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be drawing and painting some reeds in watercolor, and I'll be adding in an icy backdrop in gouache. All the while, my cat tries to disrupt the process. So if this sounds interesting, stay tuned. Alright, so this is a good enough start. I do feel as if I want another reed over here, just to balance out the composition a bit more. Let me just go ahead and add one in. Now, I used to be very married to getting the precise reference image, every single leaf, count the number of reeds, getting it all picture perfect, and that just made me not enjoy the process. So these days I'm much more impressionistic because, for the most part, nobody's going to ask to see the reference photo. This image needs to stand on its own as its own piece of art without respect to the reference. Alright, now let's ink this. I'm using Winsor Newton India ink. I've had to dilute it with some water a bit. I think it's just because it's old and maybe I didn't shut the lid at some point. The ink wouldn't flow as nicely as I wanted it to, so I just went ahead and added some water rather than fighting with the medium. When I was a kid, I used to call these hot dog plants. I think they were in Looney Tunes all the time in the backgrounds. I just thought they were super cool, and they didn't grow where I grew up. So one time we took a family vacation to Florida, and I saw them growing by a pond. And I made my mom stop the car, and she cut a few, and we took them home. I guess back in the day, airlines were a bit more lax about that sort of thing. I feel like you wouldn't be able to do that now. Uh-oh. My cat jumped up on my table. Hopefully he doesn't cause a ruckus. I think he's choosing violence at the moment. Come on, cat. Mushroom. No, that ink is not for you, my friend. Okay, please don't get your nose inky. You are hell-bent on getting in the video, aren't you? Larry never does this. Okay, what are we doing here? Thank you. Okay, you cannot chew my microphone. That is, he wants to chew this. You can't have that. My God. Oh my God. All right. You, sir, need to go. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. All right, so now that my cat's out of the way, let's sit down and paint this thing. I'm using an old color that was left on my palette. It's likely a mixture of yellow or ochre and burnt sienna. I used to clean my palette after every session, but then I found I was just reusing the same colors very often, so now I just leave it dirty in between paintings. And I find that very often I use the same colors, or can use what I used last time. The reeds here are quite thin, so can't really get too detailed. I feel like I have shaky hands today. Probably because I did some exercise this morning. This whole video is just an elaborate ruse to tell everyone that I lift. Doing my best to stay in the lines, but I'm not super bothered if the water flows out a bit. Gives it a nice sort of unfinished look, which I enjoy. We don't have to do a whole lot here, especially with the tone of the page, but I'm going in on the bottom with a bit more of a reddish color just to distinguish the bottom of the reeds a bit, as we see in our reference photo. Making sure to do this while the first color I laid down is still a bit wet, so the water spreads into the other one nicely. All right, now we're going to do this hot dog part, this part up here. Using this older color again. Not sure what's in it exactly. I'm sure it's burnt sienna, maybe some of my Winsor violet. I'm sure hot dog part is the scientific name for it. Maybe it's in Latin. Hot dogos topinus. So now I have to figure out how to deal with the more fluffy parts of the top, which I'm sure are just seeds. It was a windy day and these things were flying all over the place. But I'm just leaving space for them. Go in a little bit later with a different color while the first color is wet. Just let them kind of bleed into one another. The great thing about watercolor is you can let the water do a lot of the work in places like this. Some people find that a disadvantage. They claim that watercolor doesn't offer any control, but I like it. It saves me a lot of work. Just have the water run into itself with two different colors. Water is a better painter than I ever will be. So now I'm going to go in and try to make some rock shapes on the bottom here, just to help distinguish it a bit from the snow, which I will paint in later. It's important to try to vary the shape of your rock blobs. I'm just making some blobs here since I didn't draw in the rocks with ink or pencil beforehand, so I'm trying to vary the shapes as much as I can. The rock was some sort of Payne's gray and blue mixture, but I can reuse it to apply a little bit of shadow on these hot dog parts. Can't do too much since the subject matter is quite thin, so I'm just delicately feathering the edges of these hot dog bits. Now I want my rock blobs to be completely dry so I can go over and ink them, so I'm just fanning them a bit with my hand. It's nice to do this with the blow dryer, which I actually have handy, but I don't always feel like getting it out. It's not completely dry at this point, so I'm sticking to the drier portions and just trying to outline some of these rock shapes. This part is still a bit wet, but I'm impatient, so let's see what happens. I suspect the black ink will bleed a bit, which might be a cool effect. And yep, here's some of that bleeding happening. Also, I guess, never mind what I said about varying the shapes. They're all kind of very same here. Be better than me, vary your shapes. Okay, so for this portion I will be using white gouache. This is from the brand Holbein, and it is permanent white. If you've not used gouache before, it's similar to watercolor, it is just more opaque, which is the whole reason why we're using gouache instead of white watercolor. White watercolor will not really give us the snowy effect that we're looking for. I've just squeezed a bit into my palette and I will water it down just to make it spread easier. I like to use my flat brush for this. Covers a larger area. Boom. So for this part, it is much more important to stay within the lines, since it will just cover whatever you paint, since it is more opaque. And if you do make a mistake, like I just did, you can blot it before it dries. I do use the round brush to get into smaller areas. It does look different dry than wet. So if it is kind of on the thinner side as you apply it, it won't be that way once it's dry. It might just be not visible at all. Got paint on my finger. I've thought about doing the gouache first and then applying watercolor over that. The problem is gouache can reactivate with water, so it would make it much harder to paint. But I think since I'm having such a hard time getting in between these reeds, I will just kind of hint at snow and call it a day. My hand is too shaky today to do this well. That's okay. Some days you just have shaky hands. You have to work with where you are on that particular day. I do like this unfinished quality to it, so I don't think I'm going to go too crazy here. But an effort will be made to use up the gouache that I've squirted out, which in this case I probably put out too much. Now a nice finishing touch when your gouache is completely dry, take a bit of blue or whatever color, and with a not too wet brush, apply a bit of shadow. If your brush is too wet, you can reactivate the gouache. All right, I think we'll leave it at that so we don't overwork this. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.